Hey guys, it's Max. In this video, we're going to test and compare the thermal performance of the 2016 top-of-the-line MacBook Pro, 2017 top-of-the-line MacBook Pro, and yes, the 2018 i9 6-core MacBook Pro that is starting to stir up a bunch of controversy. Now this first got out when Dave Lee uploaded his review of the MacBook Pro. I think that was about 2 days ago, maybe less, and I just got my i9 spec'd out model in, and he ran a test with some red footage showing that the 17 was actually faster. Now nothing against Dave Lee, I'm actually a subscriber, I watch most of his videos. Dave, hit me up if you want to collaborate, you do a fantastic job. Most of his videos are shorter and more interesting to watch. I can't seem to do that. My videos are always way too long. I keep cutting them down and trying to figure out how can I make them shorter when I'm editing. So in this video, I'm gonna do a little bit more in-depth testing. I wanna test out a few different benchmarks and see what these CPUs actually run at, because when they advertise a turbo boost speed, it's not really false information. It kind of can reach that, but almost never does it actually reach that speed. And then I want to see what do they perform at when we're maxing out the CPUs, give you guys that data points, and then also test some video editing with a few different codecs, because it does matter what kind of files you're editing. For some person, if you're editing Red Raw, it could be slower than this one, but for somebody else, if the CPU is not being maxed out with that codec, you could have much better performance. So that's what we're going to take a look at today, and maybe out of this whole situation, there might be an actual benefit to a lot of you guys, but I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Getting into performance, you guys are seeing some Geekbench 4 results here. Now Geekbench tests a variety of CPU tasks, and that's really the optimal if your CPU is running at full speed without throttling, and it gives you these results because it doesn't max out your CPU constantly. Here, this is a 2.9 gigahertz base, but up to a massive 4.8 gigahertz under the full turbo boost speed, which is insane. As you see, guys, we have like this progression over here. So is it just Intel marketing? How are we getting up to 2 gigahertz of turbo boost? That just doesn't sound right. We've never seen anything that high before. And are they just, advertising this? I mean, maybe it's capable of it if you can put enough power in there and keep that sucker cool. But this CPU isn't only throttling in this MacBook Pro, the brand new XPS 15 9570, I believe, with the same i9, which is my favorite Windows laptop and what I've suggested the previous versions to you guys if you edit with Premiere Pro, that thing throttles as well. So I don't know, it's not just an Apple issue, it's maybe Intel shouldn't be quoting numbers that high. Or maybe they're just meant for laptops that are super thick with big fans that have 2 hours of battery life. I'm not sure. Now I'm going to use Intel Power Gadget to look at my CPU frequency and my temperatures. Starting off with the 2016, running the CPU test, I go instantly to 3.4 gigahertz. So this has a rated max boost clock of 3.8, but we actually run at 3.4 if we're maxing out the CPU. On this one, this is rated up to 4.1 gigahertz, but it actually runs at 3.7 gigahertz. And this guy over here runs at up to 4.8 is the rating, which is insane. But it actually goes to, that was fast. Okay, 4.2 is the highest, but it shot up instantly lowered. It was there for a split second, and it's thermal throttling down to 2.3, 2.9, 2.3, 2.9. That's insane. Here, we're still at 3.7 after all that time, and here we are at 3.3 right now. So this thermal throttled by 100 megahertz. This is at 3.6 now by another 100 megahertz. And this guy right here is at 2.79. It's rated 2.9 as a base. It can't even keep up with the base. There we go, let's run it again. 943 is what I just got. This one got 800 and this one got 727. I just finished running Cinebench about 10 times in a row, and this guy averaged about 700 points, this one about 780, and this one 920. So it's still a fair bit better than these two as far as processing power, even with all that thermal throttling. Keep in mind this is a 6-core compared to 4-core processors, but I've seen results with this processor getting close to 1100 points, which is desktop class 6-core performance if it's cooled correctly. Now another weird thing is when you're running these tests consecutively, these guys ramp up their fans a lot earlier than that one and keep them higher, where this guy is keeping the fans low, thermal throttling right away, and during the tests I hear it slowing down a little bit and then kicking back up. The system preferences for those fans are not allowing them to stay up at full, which they should be to give us the best performance. And because of that, our performance varied from all the way up to like 956, even on like third or fourth run, and then down to a little bit under 900, and then back up to around an average of 920. So that is really unfortunate. That's something Apple can fix and they can improve with the software update. Come on, Apple, if we're gonna be maxing out this insane i9 CPU in here, ramp up those fans. If you see 100% load instantly, you guys should have done quality control testing and known that that is a ton of heat that is put out and we need to cool it down. I don't understand. This is really a big problem for Apple. I mean, we've had thermal throttling in laptops, not just Apple laptops, for years and years, and even in some like all-in-one desktops, but this is such a beast of a CPU right here. One other thing to note, guys, is when you're video editing, you're not just using your processor and you're typically not maxing it out for extended periods of time. A lot of times you're using 50%, 60, 70%. So that's why we want to take a look at video editing results and see how it combines with the heat from the graphics card, which also uses the same cooling system, and the CPU, but with less load. We're going to take a look at that in just a second, but first I want to give a big thanks to today's sponsor, and that is Soundstripe. They're an unlimited music licensing service for one flat rate, either monthly or yearly, and you can get 10% off using my code with the link in the video description. They're not technically sponsoring this video, but I love Soundstripe. I've been using them for years, and with what YouTube did to my channel, they demonetized everything, and they're not fixing it. I'm not getting anywhere with them. I need to start paying for some of this stuff, guys, so definitely go check it out. I love their service. What I used to pay for just 2 to 3 tracks, one-time use, non-commercial, gives me a year of unlimited licensing for weddings, for vlogs, for YouTube, for commercial stuff, and they just redid their website. It is fantastic. I love them, so that's why I'm telling you guys about them. Check it out, and now let's get back into video editing performance. So here I have some 4.5K Red RAW footage from Red's website. This is color corrected with some LUTs applied, and I'm running it in the timeline. This is with no rendering or anything like that, full performance. And initially, this one runs it at like 24 frames per second, where this guy starts at like 11, this guy starts at 13, but as soon as the CPU starts throttling, because this red footage has to be debayered, it is maxing out the CPUs, we start getting an interesting result. So here we're running at right now about 7, it's gonna get a little lower, this is running at 9, and this is running at 5.4 frames per second. This guy's now 8, 6.5, and this one's at 6.2, 5.2. So as our GPUs are used, as our CPUs are being maxed out with the Red RAW, this one is faster. Now here we have 4K 60 RAW footage from the Canon C200, and here we're running at 17 frames per second, here we're running 17.5, and here we're running at about 20 frames per second. So none of them are keeping up, and what's actually happening is the graphics cards are maxed out because the Canon Cinema Raw Light codec is hitting the graphics card much harder than the CPU. Here we're at 31% CPU usage, 28%, and here we're at 22%. So it's not maxing out the CPU, but with the extra cores, this CPU doesn't have to work as hard, but ultimately we still can't edit this footage. And this footage really, really screams for an iMac Pro or like an i9 desktop 10-core processor to be able to edit it. I was really hoping for some better performance because of those extra cores with raw footage, but that is not the case. I just tested out some regular 4K and HEVC 4K projects with LUTs and film grain applied. The timeline performance is really the same. All these machines are capable of doing that. So lastly, let's run some renders and I'll give you guys some results. Starting off stabilizing a 4K clip, there's almost no difference. We have 16 seconds, 15 seconds, and 14 seconds. Next, moving to a 4K 5-minute project with LUTs and film grain applied. The difference is also insignificant. We have very, very similar results here. Next, I'm exporting a 1-minute ProRes RAW timeline to H.264. This is with color corrections and a single LUT applied. Also, almost no difference. What is this? Next, I have that same ProRes RAW timeline, but this time going out to ProRes 422HQ. Our oldest MacBook Pro took 2 minutes, 3 seconds. The 2017 took 2 minutes, and the new one took 1 minute and 30 seconds. Finally, we are seeing some differences. So if you're exporting to ProRes, you might get some gains with this one. And lastly, I have a 1-minute HEVC or H.265 project. It's 4K with 2 LUTs and film grain applied, exporting using compressor to HEVC. The 2016 model took 2 minutes and 15 seconds. The 17 took 2 minutes and 4 seconds, and the i9 2018 took 55 seconds. Finally, we are seeing a major difference. Now, one thing I want to note is I don't think it's because of the extra i9 processor. I think that is just the 8th generation Intel processors that have better hardware acceleration when you're encoding H.265. Meaning, even if you get the base model 2015 version, it should be much faster than these two over here. Now, overall, I am disappointed. This thing is expensive. This thing has a processor that costs $300 extra on top of the middle spec model, or $400 extra over the base model. It has 32 gigs of RAM. They sped up the graphics card a little bit, even though all three of these graphics cards are basically the same chipset, just with different frequencies, minor updates. That is really, really unfortunate. I also do want to mention that this is just in Final Cut. I'm going to have a full comparison between these three models for video editors, and that's going to include Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve. So hopefully we get some more improvements in DaVinci Resolve. I doubt we're going to see any difference in Premiere Pro. That usually is the least kind of affected because it doesn't really make use of your hardware very well. But I'm going to be exploring this more. I'm going to do a full detailed comparison looking at some more codecs. And we'll see how they perform and if you should update. Now, in the beginning of the video, I mentioned that there could be a positive out of this. And that positive is that this could be the first time that I'm going to recommend buying a base model 15-inch MacBook Pro for two reasons. One, there's 6 cores across all the 15s. Apple didn't put a 4-core in the base model 15-inch, which I expect them to do. There's 6 cores all around. 2, Apple also made the base model graphics card a 4 GB graphics card, where the last 2 years there were always 2 GB graphics cards. You had to go for the best GPU to get 4 GB, and that did make a difference. So maybe you can get the base CPU, which is also 6 core, because this thing is throttling down to those speeds anyways. You can get the base graphics card and then upgrade to 32 GB of RAM, which is what I've been wanting. A lot of you guys have been wanting that for a while, and spend less money this time around and then sell your previous notebook. So I do want to get in a base model MacBook Pro, and maybe a mid one too if I can somehow pull it off, but at least a base model, and compare the performance between this $3,500 machine versus the base model. I think the SSD is a little smaller, but performance-wise, I think that's $2,400. So can you save yourself $1,100 and get the similar performance? And I think that's what we might see. With this i9 and this MacBook, it's more like marketing, unfortunately. In the desktop world, you're getting a lot more RAM that you can add in. You're getting more PCI lanes. You're getting other updates with the i9s. With the laptops, they're basically the same. This has a little bit more cache than the other two models of the 18 other 6-core models. Other than that, they are the same, just the clock speed differences. But since they can't cool it down, I think we might get the same performance even with the cheapest CPU. So you can at least save yourself $400 or more. Another thing we could take a look at is how these guys perform with an external graphics card. I do have that Blackmagic external GPU unit, and if we're exporting and we're editing, but the graphics card inside here is not heating up, that gives more headroom to cool down the CPU. So if you're going to be using an external GPU, we may see more gains with the i9 than we did in this comparison. So there's a lot more to test out. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, enable those notifications so you guys do not miss out on those videos. Let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions or comments in the comment section below. I have links to these guys in the video description, also to Soundstripe. Definitely check those guys out. This has been Max, and I will see you in the next video.